Good morning everyone, I am Abhilash Verma and today we are going to learn about Android basics. Today we will cover the following topics. First is the Android intents, second is fragments, third is tabs. So let us start with the theoretical part with Android intents. Now, what are intents? Now, Android intents are nothing but a messaging object that is provided to us by the Android system. Now, it is basically used for invoking actions or passing messages between activities. Though there are a lot of other functionalities that is available with the intent, the primary three objectives of intent using intents are first to start up an activity or to start a service or deliver broadcast across multiple components on your app itself. So how does an intent work? So basically what happens is that we are in an activity and we call the start activity method, passing it our own intent. Now this intent is then captured by the Android system. Now Android system on that intent creates the activity B that we wanted to start or invoke. So this is how intent works on the basic level. Intents not being a way to what we can say as invoke other activities. It is also used to pass messages between the activities. So let us assume that I have an activity A where I am entering my name, and on activity B I want that name to be displayed. Let's consider it similar to the post method or the get method in your web development sessions. So to pass messages between activities, intents prove to be a very good way. So for accomplishing the message passing, we use the two primary functions, that is put extra. It takes input the value in the key value pair, and then we can use the get string extra and then the key name that we want to extract from the intent that has come. This is we are just reading here about the get string extra. There are various different methods depending on the data type that you have put in the extra intent. So this is all about the intent, the basic purpose that we are going to require. So let's go ahead and create an application that would use an intent to go to another page that we want to. So okay, so let's begin with that. So here you can see I have my emulator running and I have my Android Studio beginning page. What I will do right now is I'll just create a new Android Studio project so you will know from where we should start. So my application name, okay, I'll give it my intent. Okay, now company domain. Now this is something very important. Most of the people leave it as com.example.something something, but I recommend you guys to change this to something that you want. Like let us assume that this is our third part. So part3.tut. So this would be more appropriate in my sense, because the com dot example dot something is not acceptable on the Play Store. If you try to upload your app on your Play Store, it will not accept the APK that you would be uploading there, because it cannot allow the com dot example extension for that. Okay, so let's begin. We will be taking the basic settings that are already pre-selected for us. We'll just click next. We'll create an empty activity. We'll leave the name that one. We'll finish, and now we'll wait for the Android Studio to build our project for us. So let's go full screen. Okay, so now here you can see some processes are going, the Gradle build is going on. It may show a few errors. Well, it is because of the Gradle, because unless and until the Gradle has been built, the IDE doesn't know what kind of libraries it has to use. So now as you see, the Gradle has been finished, and so there are no errors in our project. So this is our basic application that we have just created, the hello world application. We go to the design view. So here we can see that this is a basic hello world application. So when we want to create an intent, what we would want is to go to some other activity or to invoke other activity. So we will require another activity apart from the main activity. So what we do is we will add another activity. Okay, so we right click our own main package, then we go to new, and then we go to activity and a empty activity. Okay, so we'll name it second activity. Okay, so second activity is also created. The layout file for the second activity will also be created. Okay, Here now you can see in the resources and the layouts there are two, the main activity and the second activity. All right, so what we would do is we will just add a text view here saying that welcome to second activity. Okay, welcome to second activity, giving it a little bit of a font size, bigger one. Okay, so we have our second activity in place. So now we want to go to this activity from our main initial activity, that is from this one to that one. So what I would recommend is, rather than using the constant layout, go with the relative layout or some linear layout, because constant layout is rather new and sometimes the constant don't fall really good on it. So we'll go with a, let's say, relative layout, and we'll save it. So here we have a relative layout. We'll put our hello world here in the center, then we will add a button. Okay, now on the button we'll say that we want to go to second activity, go to second activity. Now we have our buttons, now we have a graphical user interface for both the activities. Now what is the main part remaining is that how to invoke the intent, or how to invoke another activity on clicking on this button. So we'll go to a main activity. First what we have to do is create an on click listener on the button that we have, what we can say, you have put in the XML file, on in our design file. So let's go ahead and create, get the ID of that button. Button A is equal to returning a button, find view by id r dot id dot button. So it will return a button that is on our page. A dot set on click listener, new on click listener. Okay, so we have a on click listener here. In this on click method, whatever happens inside is what will happen when we click on the button. So we are talking about intent. So the basic procedure to create an intent, to invoke another activity, is to create an intent. Now intent is a predefined class in the Android repository. So we'll go and write intent x. Okay, x is equal to new intent. Okay, now in the new intent, what we have to pass is the current activity that we are in. It takes input as the constant context. Now the context currently is the main activity, that is the current page that we are on, dot this, comma, where we want to go, or the second activity that we want to invoke. So it would be second activity dot class. So now this statement says that our intent is to go from this current main activity to the second activity. Okay, so what do we do after creating an intent? You have to start that particular intent. For that we use the start, as in the presentation we saw. We have a function called start activity. X. Start activity X. Okay, so we will save this thing now, and on this we don't have to do any processing, so we'll just go ahead and run this thing on our Android emulator that is already running. So now here you see there is a process running. We click on that, it will show us the background task that it has been doing. This is very important because many people, they just wait around, they do not recognize that something is happening here down, but it is actually the background tasks that are happening. Now it is installing the APK on our what we can say as a virtual machine. We'll wait for it to launch. Okay, so it has launched. We'll go to a main screen. Now here you can see that our application, my intent with hello world and our button, has started here. So let's go ahead and check if it works. Clicking on this thing takes us to second activity. Here we are. So this is the basic purpose of intent, invoking other activity that that we want to go to. So this is how it works. We also talked about passing messages between the activities. So we'll go ahead and pass a message to a next activity. So what we'll do here is, in this particular thing, in this intent, we'll put an extra. Okay, now extra what we will put is name, and name, let's pass my name. Okay, so we are passing my name to the intent. So what we would be doing in the second activity is, we are going to get that name that has been passed by the previous activity, that that by which we reached here. So here we also need another intent. Okay, intent A is equal to, now here we are going to use the get intent method. Now get intent, what it does, it returns the intent object that was used to invoke this particular activity. So what we are going to do is get my name in a string variable, string name is equal to a dot get string extra. My string name was name semicolon. Okay, let's check it once. It's n capital. Okay, remember this is case sensitive, so n should be capital. Okay, so we got the name here. Okay, what we would do now to reflect that we are receiving actually the name is, we would be changing uh, this particular text to my name, or welcome to welcome dash Abhilash. So what we do, we'll find that particular text ID, text view 1 is equal to, we'll be returning text view find id r dot I dot. Okay, now the id for this particular text is text view. Okay, text view. Now what we do, we will set text 1 dot set text. Okay, not here. We are writing the wrong file. You see, this was the main activity. We have to do it here. Okay, so here we are capturing the text view. Okay, we found the text view. We are going to set the string here as welcome. Okay, welcome and my name. So this would be printing welcome Abhilash when we go to the next screen. So let's go ahead and run this particular thing. So it has launched our activity here. Okay, see, now it is saying welcome Abhilash. So this was the message passing using the intents. So the next thing we have on our menu today is fragments. Now what are Android fragments? Now you see, fragments are nothing but a mechanism that give us an functionality that we can represent multiple interfaces on a single UI plane. So a fragment is nothing but a, what we can say, as a mechanism that lets us allow having different layouts within the same UI screen that we want to use. Think of it as a sub activity that you can reuse in different activities. A fragment is similar to a modular application section of activity that can be reused anywhere you want. So let's go and see what are the steps for creating a fragment. Okay, so the following are the steps that that are required to be followed to create a fragment. First is that we have to create the activity that would hold our fragments. Means the page, the main UI plane, where that would be multiple interfaces or multiple user interfaces that we want to implement. Okay, Then there would be creating buttons or mechanisms by using which we would be changing the fragments. Now you see fragments are something, the fragments are like independent entities. Now fragments are full scale design elements or design layouts where we can have our own custom layout and a custom Java file that would run them, but they would be embedded onto a parent activity or a parent design layout. So the third step would be involving creating Java and XML file for the fragments, and the fourth would be setting up listeners to load different fragments. While loading different fragments, you have to be careful because fragments being very good at being what we can say as user flexible, because you can design the fragment in the way you want. So the important methods that we would be using here is the fragment manager, and the method that would be using from that class is the get support fragment manager. The other would be the fragment transaction, where we would have a begin transaction, a replace, and the final one is the transaction commit. Now we will see about these steps in our hands-on. Okay, so let's go and start with fragments. Okay, so we'll go ahead and create a new Java project, not import a project. Okay, we want to create new Java project. Okay, new Android project. So we'll give this name as fragment. Okay, okay, part 3 dude, let's say frags. Okay, go there, next, next, empty activity, next, finish. So we are going to have a new hello world program running here for us. We'll close the old window now. Okay, okay, okay. So we have a new hello world program here with us right now. It is also building the index here. Okay, so what we would do in this, that we would be using fragments. Okay, so let's get rid of this particular thing from here, and rather than using constant layout, let us use linear or okay, I prefer linear layout. Okay, okay, so we have a linear layout here. Now this linear layout, okay, so what my trick of getting a good UI is using multiple linear two level linear layouts. Now this is the linear layout, it is horizontal. I'm going to use a linear layout again. Okay, linear layout, it's again horizontal. Okay, now in this linear layout, what I'm going to do is I'm going to set it a margin, a layout margin of let's say 10 dp. So it would give me a proper what you can say as a pane where my things won't be going outside of this plane. So we'll add a few buttons here. Okay, in this linear layout. Okay, the button 1 comes and button 2 comes up. Okay, I don't want a horizontal one, I want a vertical one. Okay, okay, let's delete this thing. Let's add a linear layout, a vertical one. Okay, now in this linear layout, this vertical one, we'll set layout margins to 10 dp. Okay, then we would be adding buttons to this thing, button 1, button 2. Okay, so I have two buttons, and then we would be adding a fragment. Now the fragment goes here. So okay, so here it asks us for the what kind of class that we are want to use. So we will be using the list fragment. This is one of the oldest one. There are new ones, but you would have to refer to the particular documentation related to that particular class. This is the universal one, the list fragment that has been used. It is the most used fragment up till now. We would be using that fragment. Okay, we want to position down here. Okay, now here it says it has render error one issue. Now this is because the fragment that we have here does not have any content inside it. Okay, we have not written handler, not nor we have assigned anything to it. So let us just name the buttons here. So let us say it is fragment 1, and this is fragment 2. Okay. Okay, now what we have to do is we have to create two fragments that would be displayed in this particular part. So we'll go here on our package, new. There's a fragment, blank fragment. Okay, so we'll name is that frag1. Okay, now what happens here is that it will create a default file for us that would have a lot of methods, but we are not going to need all of these. So we'll go and clean up. We are not going to need this section. We're not going to this private variables or this particular class or this particular function. Okay, we're not going to need this particular functions too. Okay, so we have cleaned up a fragment. This is everything that we need for now. If you want to go and learn the fragments in deep, or if you want to, what we can say as know more about fragments, you can visit to my website tutorsorbit.com. We have explained everything in detail there in the text format. I'm just explaining the basics of the fragments here right now, because that is all that is required for you to know right now, because based on this you can do a lot of things. The possibilities are what we can say is there are uncountable possibilities that you can go if you just know about how to get to a fragment, or how to change the fragment on main activity on click of buttons. Rest of the designing part are left to you guys. You can do whatever you want with whatever you want with it. Okay, so in this first fragment, what we will do, we'll say here fragment 1. Okay, fragment 1 will give it a 30 point. Okay, I don't want a string, it is just the text. Okay, I will give it a little bit of a background to this particular UI. Okay, so let's go background. Okay, background. Okay, I'll give it, let's go with a hollow blue light. This is the first fragment. Let's go ahead and create our other fragment. Fragment blank. Let's say frag2 finish. I can go and clean it up. uh, okay, here you see we don't need these things, we don't need these things, and we don't need these things. Okay, so we have cleaned up our second fragment. Let's go to its design file and also change the string here. Okay, what is the string that we want is fragment 2. Okay, so we'll give it also a 30 point font, and let us have a background. Let us have color. Let's go with orange light. Okay, so now what we have is we have two fragments that are independent right now, independent modules that are not here yet used in our main activity. Okay, so let's go ahead and write the mechanisms to change what we can say what is visible in this particular fragment down here. Okay, so what we want to do right now is when we click on the fragment 1 button, it will load the first fragment in this particular fragment frame, and when we click on the fragment 2 button, it will load the fragment 2 in this particular fragment frame. So let's go ahead and write the code for the same. Okay, so the first thing that would be needing here is to get our buttons and have action listeners on them. So we'll just go ahead and have our first action button, that is button b1 equal to find. Okay, we are returning a button here. Remember, button find view by id r dot id dot. Let's check which one is this. This one is button 4. Button 4. Let's set on click listener on this thing. Okay, so we have on click listener. Okay, so in the steps we saw that we are going to use a few of the main classes, that is fragment, fragment manager, fragment transaction. Now see, these are the three basic classes. So let's start with fragment. Fragment, let's say x is equal to new. Now this now here what we are going to create is we are going to create a new fragment, and now this fragment must be of what we can say, it must call the constructor of one of our own fragments. That let's go ahead and frag one. So here we have created a fragment. Then let's create a fragment manager. Okay, fragment manager is equal to get supported format manager. Okay, okay, now what the fragment here does is it gets an what we can say as an object of the fragment that we want to use. The fragment manager is the one that would be controlling the execution, or what we can say control what we want to do with our fragment window. And then comes the fragment transaction. Now the fragment transaction would be manager dot begin transaction. Now transaction can be thought of as an actual transaction, like in the transaction of a bank. What happens that we give money, it goes around, it follows a particular steps. So what happens here in this transaction is that first we are going to replace the content of that what we can say the fragment screen that we have on our main activity with the particular fragment that we want. So let's go ahead and write trans dot replace r dot id dot fragment with our fragment, that is x. And now the main step is trans dot commit. Similar to the databases, you have to commit a transaction here, without which it will not work at all. So what we have done right now is we have set on click listener on one of our buttons that would load the fragment one fragment into the fragment container that we have on our main activity or the main XML page. Okay, so we'll just cut it short. We'll just copy paste this particular code and change the button ID. Let's name it B2, and this to be button 3, and this to be 2, and this to fragment 2. Okay, so what we have done here is we have created an application where we have a fragment window. This now you can see what I was telling about having multiple layouts inside the single UI panel. So you can see you can have it as a settings. This button can be of a settings. It can be of user profile, and the UI wouldn't have to change much. This would be your top level hierarchy or the top level menu that would change the content down below here. Okay, so let's go ahead and run this thing. Okay, so it's installing the APK now. Okay, so it has started the activity here. You see now here you see that it is loading, it is showing loading screen. Well, it is showing that because we have not defined any default fragment for that. So the what we can say, the OS doesn't know that what it has to load here. So let's go ahead and click on fragment 1. Now here you see it has loaded our fragment 1. Let's click on fragment 2. Now you see it has loaded a fragment 2. We can do this as many times as we want, and it won't be creating any new activities here. It would be running on the same activity with different UI elements. Now fragment 2 can contain different UI. Here you can have a profile picture, multiple buttons. On the fragment 1 you can have sliders and other setting options, anything that you want. The possibilities are what we can say as infinite. Okay, so that was all about fragments. Let's move ahead and learn about tabs. Now you have seen multiple what we can say as multiple applications that use tabs nowadays, from WhatsApp to Facebook. All of them have started using tabs. Like in the WhatsApp you get chat, status and the calls. They are nothing but tabs there. Okay, so what we are going to do is we are going to learn about how to make these tabs and how they are different from what we can say as the fragments. Well, tabs are nothing but the multi-category interactive app layout, which enables us to provide what we can say is it is similar to fragments, as we've previously learned that in the fragment you can have different UI elements on the same page. So here you can have different UI elements on the same page just by clicking a button or a tab icon. But just the difference here is that you don't have to have fragment manager or all sorts of those objects. You don't have to have a transaction, and you don't have to commit it at all. The tab host, the concept in the tabs that we would have is that the tab host would take care of all those things, and you don't have to write code explicitly for the buttons or to finding the buttons, creating buttons. You don't have to have actually add additional elements when you're using tabs. So to create the tabs, first what we have to do is add an tab host to our activity XML file, and then add different contents to the tab, and then we have to initialize tab host in our Java file, and then we have to set up the tab properties like the tab indicator and the tab content. We will learn about these properties in our what we can say while we have our hands on. So the important classes that we would be using is the tab host and the setup method inside is. Now what happens when we use a tab host setup method, it enables us to add a tab spaces inside it. Now the other is the tab host dot tab spec. Now the tab specification, what we can say it is as a subclass of tab host. It enables us to set the specification of the tab that we want. Now the set indicator. Now what we the set indicator is like you see in our WhatsApp there is written a chat, status, and calls. This is the tab title that we'll be using, and the set content. Now we'll see the content that we want to set inside our different tabs using this method. So let's go ahead and have a hands-on with tabs. Okay, so what I will do is I will just go home on this device. We'll start a new project. Okay, let's give it a name, tabs example ex. Okay, package name to tabs ex. Next, finish. Okay, so we have a new application being built here for us. Okay, so we have another Hello World application built for us by the Android Studio. We'll close our old one here. Okay, let's begin with tabs. So as we saw in the steps, what we have to do is first primarily we have to go to our XML file and add a tab host. Here you go. Okay, we don't want this hello world here, and then we want the tab host here. Okay, okay, I don't want the constraint layout. I'll go with the relative, my favorite one. Okay, let's go to this design tab. Okay, in this relative layout, let's go and have this tab host, match parent, parent. Okay, so initially it shows us about three tabs here. Okay, this is the tab widget that we have, showing three tabs, and there are three linear layouts. Okay, in this linear layouts we can have our own custom contents. Okay, so let's say in the tab 1 we'll add a text view saying this is tab 1. Okay, we'll have text view in the second one saying this is tab 2. Okay, in the third one again, let's add a button for a change, and the button will say this is tab 3. Alright, so we have three tabs and three different layouts for that. Three different linear layout for three different tabs that have some unique feature that we want. Okay, so you may see that okay, it is displaying tab 1, tab 2, tab 3, and these are the layouts. You won't have to do anything. Well, that is not enough right now. If you play this app or run this app, you won't see any of this content, because unless and until you have set up the tab host and you have added the tab sets inside it, you won't be able to what we can say as display these things on your main activity when it starts. Okay, so let us begin with a tab host. Okay, tab host, tab. Well, let's find the tab host in our XML. Tab host id r.id dot. Okay, okay, let's see our tab host ID. Okay, there is no ID to our tab host. We'll have my tab. Okay, enter command S. Okay, let's id dot my tab. Okay, now we have our tab host. Okay, now let us put it in a setup mode. Tab dot setup. Okay, so next thing that we are going to need is a tab spec, which is a subclass in the tab host only. Okay, tab spec, let's say ts is equal to tab dot new tab spec. Let's name it tab 1. Okay, now in this specification, what we would say is that in this specification we'll see we'll have indicator. Now indicator is nothing but what would be displayed above your tab, what we can say in this particular, like here it is written tab 1, let's say tab A. Okay, this is the indicator, and let's have the content that we want to show when that particular tab is selected. So set content r dot id dot tab 1. Now tab 1 is the linear layout here, this one. This is for the tab 1 that we want to show. Okay, then we are going to add this particular the tab host, tab dot add tabs ts. Okay, now what we have done here is we have add a single tab to this. We have three tabs, so we will have to copy this particular item two more times. Okay, but this time we have to have change the numbers and the name, or it will show everything same as the first tab. Okay, and the IDs here would be 2 and 3. Okay, so what we have done here is we have created our tab host with three tabs having three different linear layouts. So let's go ahead and run it. Okay, it's booted. Okay, so you can see we have three tabs: tab A, tab B, tab C. Let's click on tab B. This is tab 2. Tab C, this is tab 3. It has a button. We do not have any actions on these things, so it won't do anything right now. These are the basics of Android intent, fragment, and tabs. So today we learned about intents, how they work, why they are used for. So let's have a summary. Okay, intents. Now intents, we use them to invoke other activities and pass messages to them. It can also be used to start a service and also to send a broadcast message. Now fragments. Fragments are nothing but a mechanism that are provided to us by the Android system, that enables us to have what we can say as a multi-content interactive single activity where we can have different interfaces built into the same thing. The third is the tab host. Tab host is nothing but a little bit advanced version of fragments. Well, it provides us a little bit of a less flexibility, but it reduces a lot of work. It does not make us have what we can say as extra buttons for every layout we want to load. It provides a limited flexibility in styling and other factors, but the content inside the tabs is completely customizable, same as the fragments. So thank you for listening to this lecture. Hope you who enjoyed it. Those who didn't can contact me, and those who want to learn in person can also contact me via the website tutorsorbit.com. Thank you.